5 best buys in 2025 and how you can capitalize on them. This video is all about the 5 opportunities that's coming up in 2025. No matter where you are, whether you're buying $500,000 or a $5 million property, these are still things you need to look out for in 2025 to nab the opportunities that other people are missing or dismissing, so you could get exponential results. You've got to change the way you buy so that you can get ahead of the market. My name is Helen Tarrant. I help everyday Australians become wealthy through investing in commercial property, and I'm going to share with you in this video how you can get ahead of the market through investing in these 5 different types of properties. But furthermore, if you stay tuned till the end, I'll actually share with you a complete strategy how you can actually get 20 to 40% return on your investments. So stay tuned, let's get started. 5 best buys in 2025, doesn't matter whether you're buying 500,000 or 5 million, retail is the upcoming favorite next to warehousing. Now, industrial warehousing has had a boom in the last 3 to 5 years, and we've seen exponential growth of 40 to 60% in terms of value growth in warehouses, as well as we've seen in the last 2 years a 20 to 30% increase in the rents. So if you invested 2, 3, 5 years ago in industrial warehouses, congratulations, you've made it and you've had a boom, and you really should be capitalizing on that to go again. However, if you're buying into the market right now, unless you're hitting a 6% yield in a metro area in terms of warehousing, you're actually paying above the market. So in Melbourne, the typical yield is about 4.5, in Sydney it's about 3.5 and lower. But that means you're really only relying on it on capital growth and not cash flow. And we all know that commercial property or any kind of property investment, when you look at a portfolio, you need to have both cash flow and growth. So if you invest in warehouses, it's time to switch. Retail is the next best thing, because let's face it, people don't want to be in office spaces. However, my next step is actually going to talk about how you can capitalize on office spaces. So retail, what should you be looking for? Now, retail needs to be in a hub. So make sure you've got plenty of demand, plenty of people, plenty of walk-by traffic. It doesn't really matter if you have a derelict building in one of the streets or 2 or 3 derelict buildings, but if you can see development coming up, this is where it becomes really important, because if you can see developments, recently I was just at a Lululemon opening store in Fitzroy, and you know what? That area had graffiti everywhere. There was 2 or 3 derelict buildings, but you know what? There was Coles developments down the road. This apartment building where Lululemon is underneath, is the apartments being sold for $3 to $4 million, which for Melbourne is an absolute record in this current market. So you can see that despite what the market is doing, there's still pockets of it booming as well, right? So that's a sign you need to look for. You need to buy retail in hubs, in an area that most people are neglecting and thinking, no, I don't really want to be in retail. That's where you can get above market yields, because typically you buy a brand name tenant like Lululemon, a tenant like a medical tenant, you'll probably get about 4 to 5% yield in the open market. Now you can get them between 6 to 6.5%. That means if you buy at the higher level, especially above 3 to 4 million, you can definitely capitalize on the additional cash flow in your pockets, right? So retail in a hub, but what you need to avoid is those single operators, say like a single operator of a convenience store that's not part of like a Quickie Mart or a franchise like a 7-Eleven. Those things tend to be pop-up stores, right? They tend to come and they tend to go. So you need to avoid those. But also look at the areas where there's oversupply, right? So let's say there's cafes in every corner, right? And you just happen to be a cafe with no specialty. So you're not a luxe croissant, you're actually just a run-of-the-mill cafe amongst all the other 10 cafes on the same street. That's something to avoid. What I look for is uniqueness, opportunity, and also what the market is neglecting when I'm looking at retail, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is about office spaces. Now, everyone's had smashing office spaces. Look, you know, work from home, AI, all of these new technologies means that you don't actually have to go to the office. But let me tell you that there's more and more people going back to the office environment simply because they're much more productive in the office, and also because they need wage growth and climbing the corporate ladder. Now, if you want to be climbing the corporate ladder, you want to be advancing in your career, you want your boss to be able to see you. So more and more people are actually returning into the office space. While people are shunning office spaces, we can see that what has really benefited office space in the last 2 years is not the CBD, but everything fringe around it. That means you have things like your Albert Parks, your Spring Hills, your Fortitude Valleys, your Chippendales, your Alexandras, all the things that's outside that CBD, but has a bit of a lifestyle twist and that looks a little bit different, has really benefited from the low in office space, but the boom in people's appreciation for lifestyle as well as working somewhere close to them. So if you're looking for office spaces, look for those tweaks where it's a little bit different, whether that's a little bit of industrial chic, you might be in an area that's alternative, you might be close to a hospital, medical precinct, you might be close to a lifestyle precinct, whatever it is, that is going to bring you the best value that you're going to buy, because your tenants are going to want to be in those areas, not only because they need to be back in an office space, but they love the fact that they're close to amenities. So they can close to a shopping precinct, there's something where they can go to yoga in the middle of the day, or they can go and have a Pilates session, whatever it is. Now that is that blended lifestyle with work that is driving the growth of office spaces, and you got to make sure that you keep up with that trend. So that's number 2. Number 3 is about buying bigger warehouses. I know that in the last couple of years, people have said, look, these little silos popping up, these man caves popping up, and oh my God, they're like 50 to 60 or 100 square meters, and you can build mezzanine floors. They're so great. But let's face it, the real tradie, the people who have 2 or 3 staff members, those starter trade tenants, are wanting warehouse spaces between 150 square meters to 250 square meters. So just forget about this 50 to 100, because there's going to be an oversupply. If you look at it all around, it's like building a larger storage shed and just getting people who are really owner-occupiers to buy this, telling them that you can actually rent it out. But what happens is you rent it out like a residential tenant, where the tenants are paying one flat rent and they're not paying any of the outgoings, and you're not getting substantial tenants. Let's face it, BHP, any of the tech giants are not going to come and rent a 50 to 100 square meter shed from you, right? So if you want the serious starters or a serious trade tenant in your property that goes there for 3, 7, 10 years, then you need to invest in 150 to 250 square meter warehouse space, right? Preferably that might have a little office space or a mezzanine floor already part of it. If not, you can actually build it, but make sure you do make it compliant and get your engineering and strata compliance on that. But that is what you need. Preferably, if you can get it on some land or some additional parking, that's the additional bonus for your property, right? So, with that in mind, that is your warehousing. Make sure, though, you do not go too small and you do not overpay. Remember, your yields needs to be about 6% when you're in metro, so that keeps you in around that Brisbane area, maybe Ipswich area. Maybe you could probably get it. Gold Coast is going to be a little bit less than that, and Sunshine definitely a lot less than that, right? So, make sure that you do not overpay for these warehouse properties. Otherwise, all you have is capital growth to rely on. And finally, number 4 is about strip shops or multi-tenancies. Now, why is that the best buy? Now, this is interesting. You can always tweak a multi-tenancy or a strip shops because you get to control the traffic, right? You get to control the tenant mix. And what have we learned about all these years of internet and AI and just business and sales and marketing, whatever it is whoever controls the traffic actually wins, right? So if you're in a strip shop or a group of shops where there's always the demand, so traffic flow, like whether it's getting 50 or 30,000 cars that go by, make sure you have parking spots for them, or whether it's anchored by, say, Woolies across the road, or Aldi, or Bunnings, right? It's a destination, right? People come there because it serves a purpose, right? You might be a strip shop near a hospital, right? Whatever it is, you get to control that hub, right? So you get to control what type of tenants you put in there. It doesn't matter when you bought it, it might be a slightly lower yield and that the tenants are underperforming. You can always switch them out. Yes, it's short-term pain, but for long-term gain. With a strip shop, you'll consider long-term, 5, 7, 10 years. How are you going to tweak them over time? They're not going to happen overnight, but they will be tweaked over a 3 to 5 year period where you can perform substantially better and you can get your value plus more, right? Because you get to control the tenant mix, and that makes it important, right? And that's the key to investing in strip shops. So you are going to pay a lower yield for a strip shop than you would normally everywhere else because they're so in demand, and you are going to have fluctuations in income because one tenant will exit, one tenant will come in, one will have a rental increase, one will need an incentive. You're always going to have that. But make a plan. Don't just buy it with no plan thinking that's a great idea. Buy it with a plan of 3 to 5 years in mind and how you're going to increase that. Get a really good asset manager on board who's going to help you manage that and tweak that and turn that property around. So that's the strip shop one, right? And of course, number 5 is the ultimate. So thank you for staying all the way to the end. Remember, my name is Helen Tarrant and I help everyday Australians become wealthy through commercial property. And if you want to find out more, book in for that free strategy session below. But also I've got upcoming masterclasses where it's teaching you all the specific on commercial property, and you should definitely join that in the coming year in 2025 because that's going to position you well to get into the market. So there's a link below. Make sure you get in, make sure you register, and I can't wait to see you there and show you more how I can build out that blueprint to success for you. Now, number 5 is about value add. Now, a lot of people think, let's just put solar on the roof. That's a value add. That's a fallacy, right? Yes, it will give you some value add, but in comparison to real income, like where you can get it from an extension of a property, where you can get it from uplifting rent, rejigging your tenancy, creating more lettable area, solar's nothing. What you need is a value add property. And when you look at a value add property, the mistake that most people make is that they want it within the next 12 months. If you're doing a total uplift where you're getting a vacant re-tenancy refurb, you can expect those results within 12 to 18 months. But when you're doing a value add, that's often a 2 to 3 year process, because you need to wait for the tenants to actually finish up one term, or you need to see that the tenants actually have some issues. You're not going to go in there crash bang in the first 6 months and try to uplift it. What you're trying to do is you're trying to actually work out, what does the tenant need? What is the demand? How can I increase and maximize my space so that I can add more tenancy? So what exactly is a value add? Is for example, you buy a property, it has a larger piece of land, or it has parking spaces. Now, the parking spaces might be 20, 40 parking spaces to that property. Now, you might find that not all of the parking spaces are being used. You now need to monitor that after about 3 months of owning that property. And you realize, well, you know what? Not all of the parking space being used. Maybe I can put in 2 20-foot shipping containers, or 3 or 4 at the back, right? If I put that at the back, I rent that out, that gives me a couple of $1,000s a year, right? Maybe $5,000 a year. Now I've added to my cash flow, because guess what? My mortgage repayments are still the same. I'm just adding to my cash flow. So that's exactly what kind of value add. Perhaps you have a warehouse property and that's much larger, and behind it needs to be paved into concrete or hard stand. You could do that for the tenant and charge them a little bit more. Potentially, you could give them a mezzanine floor. If you have a retail space, this is where retail space becomes really, really cool, is that you could take a larger retail space, divide it into 2, or you can do an extension and create another tenancy at the back. So if you had a retail shop at the front, you could divide it up and say, look, you only need the front. Maybe that's a gift shop. Maybe it's just a little hole-in-the-wall cafe. But behind it, we could have a ribs and pizza place. We could have someone who does printing of, let's say, promotional stickers and everything else, or we can have someone who is simply like an art gallery, and even a hairdressing salon works at the back. So you can carve it up if you've got real lane access to have that kind of tenant, right? I've even seen like injectable clinics in there as well. So value add is going to be one of the single most important things that's going to come out in 2025, but you've got to look at what is real value add and what isn't. This is the biggest mistake that most investors make, is they think things are value add, but they don't end up being value add. And as a result of that, they're not able to lift up the value and the cash flow in as short a time as they want. So when you look at value add, really make a plan for 2 to 3 years rather than trying to get a result in 12 months. Look ahead, plan ahead, because remember, investing in property, whether it's commercial or residential, is about the long-term gain. And sometimes you need to take a short-term pain for that long-term gain. So on that note, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Do comment below to see what you want more of. So if you want more of value add videos, do comment below value add. You want to learn more about hotspots in 2025, you want to know about where the cash flow is, do comment below, engage with us so we can engage back and show you in upcoming videos more of where you can profit through commercial property. My name is Helen Tarrant, and I look forward to welcoming you into my community. Bye for now.